What's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. We're into a November episode once again, and this is just a fantastic one. Mosh pits, metal, and good ass music. I mean, what more can you ask from an episode on the Chord Progression Podcast? This one is a fun one. Before we get started, though, I want to thank our sponsor of the podcast, Manscaped. Yep, we're still sponsored by Manscaped. Our code still works. So, Manscaped, the best care for your boys down there. Yeah, we're approaching, the Christmas time. It's the holiday season. Yeah, why am I still doing this stuff? But, maybe you've got someone in your life that really needs the gift of good care down there. Something that a lot of people could use, honestly. And why not help them out with that by getting them a Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped? That is right. If they get that Lawnmower 4.0 for them, that's going to make sure that they're looking good for Christmas down there, and they're not looking like they're mad scientists that are like, great Scott, I discovered it's alive! It's alive! Now, you don't want to have to deal with anything like that. I mean, basically, would you rather have your stuff down there looking like like Gary Busey after he went on a massive rant and hairs everywhere, or do you want it looking like Bill Burr? Okay, maybe I could use a different one than Bill Burr. I don't know why I'm thinking about Bill Burr right now. Bill Burr's just funny as hell, but get someone in your life a Lawnmower 4.0 for the holiday season as good care for their boys down there. It has ultra skin safe technology to make sure that, you don't get those nick cuts down there, because nothing's worse than nicking your stuff down there going, ting tang, well, bing bang. I still like saying that. It also is waterproof and has a 4K LED light in there, so you can see what you're doing when you're mowing down there. Trust me, definitely go pick yourself up one. Or pick someone up. Pick it up for someone in your life that you want to give them for the holiday season, for Christmas. Yeah, so go to manscaped.com, use the code CPP at checkout, get 20% off and free shipping. Go to that right now, link to the podcast. Now time for a feature presentation. I said mosh pits, metal, and good music. That's what happens when Andy from the band Melted Bodies comes to the podcast at you right now. Their brand new album called The Inevitable Fork is going to be a 3-sliced EP. So you're going to get 1 EP, 2 EP, 3 EP. The first one comes out on November 25th. So right after Thanksgiving, go Black Friday shopping, listen to Melted Bodies. But before you do that, enjoy one hell of a podcast with Andy from Melted Bodies right now. Are you guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. Do you like metal? I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you like metal. So we got one hell of a band for you to check out today. This band is releasing their brand new album, The Inevitable Fork, in 3-part EPs. So if you were following of Mice and Men in 2021, very similar style like that, where it's an EP with a couple songs, EP, couple songs, EP, a couple songs, boom, comprised of a whole album. And the first EP comes out on November 25th. It's got 4 songs on it, and well, I'll say this, I'm not necessarily sure I've ever heard anything like this before. This kind of blew my mind a little bit. So please welcome Andy from the band Melted Bodies to the podcast. So Andy, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, man. How is everything going in your world today as we gear up, for the first EP to be released at the end of November, right around that Thanksgiving time? So everyone's going to be like on Black Friday, oh, what are we going to get? What are we going to get? Yep, you're getting a brand new EP. So how are things been on your end?
Everything's good, man. We cracked out from a long day of work. Happy to be talking about this and music because I love it so much. And just like anything, we've had these songs for a while, or it feels like a long time. So I'm just happy to be getting them, slowly out into the world. So really excited, yeah.
And it's an exciting time to get stuff out in the world too, especially with, it's 2022, even though we're coming to the end of it, but that pandemic time where, live music was not a thing for a while, like that is thankfully a distant memory now. So when it comes to getting these songs, not only in the hands of people, but for people to listen and then start going like, you know what? I really want to see Melted Bodies live. Can we make that happen? Because for myself, I mean, I love jumping into mosh pits. When I heard this, I'm like, yeah, this is something I need to jump into something with that for and just go, whoa, let's go.
Yes, I love to hear that. Yeah, we want to get out there. Like we just did like our first dates as a band on the East Coast just a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, we've only really done LA shows. So I think touring and getting out there, especially because we've had that first album, that first album came out in the heat of the pandemic. So touring and, even local shows were off the table. And we got like an amazing amount of feedback as being, pretty much an independent band, releasing an album with no touring behind it. So we're excited not only to be playing all this new stuff, but then for most people playing songs, from a record from a year and a half ago that most people haven't even heard live as well, outside of LA. So everything, if and when you see us live, everything's going to be new, which is cool.
So you just keep making me more and more excited for this, because literally the day before we recorded this, I went to go see the Trivium tour that was going on in the fall. And like they were basically, touring off of 2 albums, because they did the one in 2020 that they didn't get to tour off of. Then all of a sudden touring comes back, they're releasing the Court of the Dragon. So it was just a whole hodgepodge. Like I get to hear 2 albums, like brand new stuff for the first time live. So now I'm thinking, what's that going to be like when you guys go out and tour? It's going to be absolutely ridiculous and epic, given the fact that how people really took to that first record, Enjoy Yourself. I mean, didn't Metal Sucks like rank it super duper high in their end of the year rankings for just album of the year, basically?
Yeah, I think it was them. Yeah, we got like really good response on that one critically, and which was as you hear us, like it's a roll of the dice, especially in this genre. So we were really happy with that, like I said, especially not getting out there and, as you said, metal and dancing and going in the mosh pit and like is, as I'm sure for both of us, like, growing up and being a little kid and like going to your first concerts, and then you're like, if you like it, you're hooked, because that's such a part of the genre is, feeling that genre, that energy live and jumping in and being like, no way I can do a mosh pit. Like I remember, so my first metal concert was Cannibal Corpse, and I was so young. I don't know why my parents let me go, but it was me and my buddies, and it was on. I didn't get to see Chris Barnes because I wasn't young enough, so it was on Vile. I don't know if you're a Cannibal Corpse fan. It was the first album when they replaced like their sort of the singer that they came up with. But yeah, I remember like seeing the mosh pit, in person and being like, no way, no way. And luckily my friend Nick, who was like half my size, and I've always been a skinny guy, and he was way smaller than me, was like, dude, we're fucking going, like we're doing this, and like yanked me in, and I had the time of my life. Like I was hooked, like I was able to like get on stage and like jump off the stage and crowd surf and do all, because I was probably like $110. I don't even know how much I weighed at that point, but it was so much fun, man. We get to meet the band afterwards and shit, like because our parents were late picking us up, so we like sat outside the venue on the street. We're like, I think our parents forgot us, and then like the band came out after the show, like smoking cigarettes or something. I don't remember. We're like, oh my god, these guys are like murderers. Like, we were like afraid, and they're like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, nicest dudes in the world. So I feel like that was, that I was like, okay, like this is my genre as far as like something that got installed in me in the core, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes total sense, because I went through something similar where I was starting to go to shows and just kind of loving it and loving the music. But then it wasn't until like 2017, when I was like 22 years old, all of a sudden I see a mosh pit not doing so well in life. I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now. My favorite band's on stage. They're about to play my favorite song. It's the last song of the night. Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. And after that moment, I'm like, I don't know exactly what I want to do in life, but something in music is now going to be it, because it's so infectious when you feel that feeling, when everything just seems right with the world in that chaos. You're just having a blast. The amount of energy that just radiates from you from that moment is just...
Yeah, and it's like, so cool. The mosh pit or whatever you want to call it, and I know that it depends on the show, it depends on the band, it depends on whatever genre you want to call it. But for me, I don't think I've ever forced anybody into a mosh pit and they've come out saying like, I hated it. I think it's just so funny to me that it's been around for so long now, and people are still so intimidated by it unless you're really into aggressive music. But it's like, I'm thinking of like ex-girlfriends or friends that like, are like, oh, I only go to hip hop shows, and I'm like, dude, this is gonna be like way more fun and less aggressive than some of those hip hop shows you go to. It just, from the outside, it looks so aggressive, but I'm like, when you get into a mosh pit, you have more room to move, to breathe, to have fun, and to let go than you do when you're in the fucking crowd, especially at festivals, where it's like you're smushed up, and I don't know. It's just like, I always wanted to do an art piece on mosh pits, like I wanted to, like, I think it's such a beautiful thing, of the way people dance. And I think it's truly this, beautiful, melting of, aggression and fun and natural movement. Nothing's really choreographed. It's, none of us, most people who listen to this music aren't dancers per se. And it's just literally like, I had a fucking shit day, or I've had a shit life, or I've had a great life, but I'm stressed, or I'm in a great mood and I just want to fucking let it out. And it's just just one of the most, natural ways that you can let loose. And it's a beautiful movement of bodies. And for the most part, everybody's really, really fucking cool. Like, everybody's there to help each other. And, if you're into the chaos, but yeah, I always wanted to do like some kind of slow-mo movie or short documentary. If that hasn't been done, I'd be blown away if it hasn't. But I don't know. Are you a mosh pit fan? And I guess what's your genre? Like, did you grow up as like a more hardcore classic, stomping kid, or were you like a circle pit guy? Or
so I mean, when I was growing up, I was more into like just the hard rock stuff, so I really didn't get into it. Okay. But what really started me actually noticing mosh pits and wanting to jump into them was I'd go and see Rise Against a good amount of times, because Rise Against is my favorite band. Yeah. So seeing what they were doing, and then after jumping into their pit, I'm just like, okay, like the lights open up, like this is life now. This is it. But it wasn't until 2019 when things really picked up for me, because that's when I started getting into more metal and metalcore specifically. That's when it took off, because I'm thinking this is too cool. Go and see Motionless in White and Atreyu play live. Just see how the massive chaos that it was. And seeing some of these absolutely big, giant jack dudes just throwing people around, and me jump in there. I'm getting bounced around. I'm not falling. I'm having a great time. I'm thinking, I don't know why I love this so much, but there's just this controlled chaos, letting go of this anger, and such this community-driven thing where someone falls down, 10 people are rushing over to pick them right back up. Someone gets hurt, people are throwing up the X on, like, in the crowd, like, hey, can you please stop showing someone actually needs help over here that we can't just like take care of right now. There's such a community around it and behind it, to the point where I go to shows now and it's weird if I don't see 10 or 12 people that I've already moshed with, whether I'm in my hometown in Milwaukee, whether I go to Madison, Wisconsin, go up to Green Bay, or like go down to Chicago. I see people I go to festivals and I see people that I see maybe once or twice a year, and it's just like, I recognize your face. I don't know your name, but this is so cool. It's like I get to see my family again.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I love it.
And if you do, honestly, because I'm thinking about, what you said about an art piece, like a short documentary, I'm pretty sure that's been done. But the thing is, I've actually never seen one. So I'm pretty sure it's been done, but maybe it hasn't been done to a scale that's really hit with a good number of audiences, that really gets people to know exactly why we love this stuff so much.
Yeah, I need to look it up now on YouTube. I'm like, there has to be plenty of them, but we need like a Spike Jones or somebody to do it, So it's just like hooks the masses.
Yeah, because you can talk about like the hardcore pits and the punk rock pits from like the 70s, get to the more metal ones with the 80s, 90s, once kind of just new metal comes in, seeing some more of the punk rock style, and kind of bring it into today, where you're seeing a lot more of it. Again, you're still seeing stuff happen with more like the new metal bands like Slipknot, Korn. They still are going to produce a lot of great mosh pits. All the things are going with the metalcore bands. Some of the hardcore bands are out there right now with, of course, elbows flying, karate kicking. But when those hardcore bands come on and those pits form, the people that go in there, they want to go and do it stuff. All of us that just love mosh and just pushing and like shoving and throwing shoulders at people, it's like, already, we know what's going on in this situation. We know what's going on with this music. You guys do you. We're not going to create any problems. You're not creating problems. We're good.
Yeah, that's and it's, I guess it depends, yeah, like you said, on the style. And, I think we've probably all been to shows where, the energy is off, or maybe there's, people that you could tell don't go to shows a lot. And, so they're like, I could just punch, or or I can just, kick and, or I can just, so it's, but I would say for the most part, especially bigger shows or really small shows, I think it's that like, it's the middle ground or the super huge bands, that you sort of get that mixed crowd sometimes. But for the most part, everybody's, once you establish the rules and you give in, it's always fun. It's always fun.
It is. Even like when I go to festivals now and I see people going in a circle, my thought process always now, everyone's going counterclockwise in the circle. You want to know what'd be fun? Let's go clockwise against everybody. I'm like, I need to hit somebody. Like, let's just not keep running a circle. Let's actually get some sort of chaos going in here. And then things start breaking apart. People start just going crazy, having fun with each other. Sometimes, people go one-on-one in the pit and just, go shoulder to shoulder. Yep. And I've seen, like, people get absolutely messed up in those. Like, some guys just overpowering another guy. And, of course, right at the end of it, whoever's on the ground, the other person picks them right back up. People are high-fiving, hugging each other, and it looks chaotic, but it's such a controlled and understood chaos in the pit where you come out of that show, the people in the pit typically are like the happiest people coming out of there because we just went through something together.
100%. Well, it gets your adrenaline going and it just gets you going versus like standing there and then you're like, should I have another beer? I don't know,
All right, let me ask you this, because you said your first pit ever was Cannibal Corpse. It just blows my mind. What, in your mind, is the best mosh pit you have ever been in?
Well, that one is obviously up there because of what I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It was like sort of everything at once, where I was like stage diving, crowd surfing, moshing all in one concert, and I was a little kid. But I think I really loved Pantera mosh pits when I was a kid. I was lucky to see them, before everything, and I saw them a few times because I like really latched onto them when I was younger, and they were super aggressive. I mean, I think that they're probably still the most aggressive mosh pits that I've ever been in, but I think I was just so into that music at that time that I just truly, like what we were saying, I just like, I knew every word and every beat and just gave in. So I have really fond memories of those mosh pits. And, it was a lot of, like sort of aggro dudes. And it was in Colorado. I saw them a few places, but I had a lot of fun at Red Rocks. I don't know if you've ever been to Red Rocks.
Unfortunately, I have not
like
yet.
A world famous venue that's like out, in the side of a mountain in these red rocks. It's beautiful, but they don't have a flat area for a pit. It's all these giant stairs. So I don't know how, like looking back at that, I'm like, how did we all do that? And yet we just, it was enough bodies where you balance it. So I feel like that's the first thing that came to mind when you asked.
That's honestly interesting, just because it's not the band, it's the location and how it was done. This is the thing that just blows my mind, but it makes so much sense where something that unique just stands out to you. Because, I mean, even myself, I've been in plenty of mosh pits, but the ones that always like stand out, like there's always something that just happened around them, something that unique that happened around that just made them so much better and so much more memorable. And those are the ones that just stick out. Like, those are the best ones I think I've ever been in. I've been in violent ones. I've been in like ones that just the energy's high, energy's rough, bodies are flying. But there's some that just when there's something special that's added in there, whether it's a special venue, whether it's outdoors and it starts raining outside. Now everyone's getting sloshy in the pit and everyone's just having a blast. Stuff like that just it sticks with you, and every time you think about it, you just have to smile because you remember the meaning, you remember what it meant to you, remember how you felt during that moment, and.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and the I think it's the energy and like you said, the characters, like the characters and the sweat, and there's just always those people, there's always the guy in the middle and there's always the wacko who like is going the whole time, even on slow parts, and it's like if it's a good balance, it just ends up.
I'm that wacko. I'm that wacko, and every single show I go to, I always wear the same Milwaukee Brewers hat, and it's just that's how people know exactly where I'm at, where the pit's gonna be, because like if I see that hat, I know where that pit's gonna be. So by the beginning of the set, I need to be by that guy.
Oh, that's funny.
And all of a sudden, the slow parts come and it's like, okay, maybe I gotta slow it down a little bit, not give as hard a hits, but I know when those songs are just gonna pop right back up, and that's when you gotta lower the shoulder, lay it into somebody, and have some fun, then potentially get flung the other way, especially if one of the big dudes comes in there and just throws you out. I want to shout out my buddy Nate on that one because he's flung me a couple of times and I go flying.
Oh man. Well, I can't wait to go out there because I'll be looking for your wait, you said it's a hat or a shirt?
It's a Milwaukee Brewers hat.
Okay, hat. I'll look for the Brewers hat.
You look in the pin. It's like, okay, where's the Brewers? Yep, there it is. There's the dude that's just in the middle going nuts, not relenting on anything. Yep, found him. We're good. But I mean, because you just said, you got done with a little like East Coast run for the first time, and then you had your LA dates. You got to come to the Midwest, man. You got to see like the stuff that happens over here, just because I've been to shows all over the place here in the Midwest, and we like to get rough.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I think it's, like with what we're doing musically, which in my mind is not that I like feel like I'm getting a chip on my shoulder from it. It's like not that out there to me, but it's our music. So I think that we, it's our greatest strength, and then it's confusing for booking agents because they're like, well, do we put you with like a hardcore band? Do we put you with a punk band? Do we put you with a metal band? And then I'm like, just put us with whoever, would want to bring us out, or, or we can put together something. So we'll get out there. I hope it's with a crazy, either that we're doing support, for somebody, or we put together, like a one of three type of thing. But I would love to get out there and do some shows, because I grew up in Colorado, and it's a different vibe. The LA scene is great, and there's a lot of amazing shit happening, but I also know just from you and other friends, that like it's a rowdy scene outside. We're spoiled in LA. There's so many things to do, and so it doesn't have that feeling of like everybody's there because they know that this is something that you can't do every weekend type of thing. Whereas in LA, there's so many shows and events going on like every single night in every genre.
Yeah, and especially thinking about with the Midwest, once it gets cold outside, once it gets to the winter, we're stuck inside the whole entire time. And when bands come through in the winter, which, not a lot of them come through in the winter as much as they do, especially in, the spring or in the fall. But when they do, we pack those places in because we actually get a chance to, go out. We get to see these bands once again. We get to see our family once again that we haven't seen in a while. And just that energy comes out in intense measures, and people just go nuts. And it's just, there's something about it where when we get to in the colder months, there's some connection between cold and winter and metal just kind of bringing some of that aggression forward that just we latch onto, especially in the Midwest. And that's not knocking any other scene out there, because I know up in the Northeast, like they've got stuff going on over there. I've seen what's gone on in the Southeast as well with like Florida. I've seen what's going on in North Carolina. Some of those guys go absolutely nuts. Texas is its own thing. I always say Texas is its own thing. Then you've got, you got LA, you've got Colorado, you've got more on the West Coast as well. Like everybody does things a little bit differently based off of culture, based off of just the area that you're around. But it's always cool to see how different places react to different music, and how different places kind of, how they mosh, how they interact with what the energy is like. It's always different, but you can always, with your kind of music, especially if you're listening to The Inevitable Fork Part 1, I'm pretty sure you guys could play pretty much with literally any genre you wanted to. Whether you guys want to go on with a punk band like Anti-Flag, boom, make it happen. It makes sense. You guys want to go on, let's say with like Knock Loose or Kubla Khan, yeah, I could definitely see it. You guys want to go on? I'm trying to think of some other bands I can throw out there. You guys want to go out with Trivium? Yep, it fits.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be, get us out there, man. Put in the good word. Who do you know? We need the promoters. Like, we need a promoter and a good booking agent at this point.
I might be able to try and figure out some people, because I know some people that have done this on like, that I've seen some tours that have come through where it's just, how do these packages go together? And then I go see the show. I'm like, yep, that package went together pretty damn well. So might have to send out a couple of feelers.
because I think about that kind of stuff a lot because of what we do. And I don't know, man. I always loved shows where it was like, where it would be like, Primus into a heavy metal band, where it was like, I like when there's stark differences, and it just makes everything feel sort of fresh, and it gives each band their own room to do what they do so well at. But it just doesn't happen as much. And I feel like that there is a little bit more of a shift more recently. I think for the last few years, up until maybe the last couple, it was, much more straight, or it was like, Nails and Knocked Loose, we're on all the bills together, and with Power Trip, which I know are all different, but there's still, like especially in sort of the Nails world, that was, you sort of knew what you were getting. But I like bills that are more where it's like one leans a little more punk, one more leans a little more rock, and then one leans a little more metal, because I just think the I don't know, the whole, I'm still blown away from doing Melted Bodies of how much feedback. I'm really so surprised that in metal people still concentrate so much on, well, what genre are you? And then I'm like, does anybody fucking care anymore? Like, does anybody care? Like, do you like it when you listen to it? How does it make you feel? Like what you were saying, where it's like, dude, you could play with Knocked Loose, you could play with Trivium. Like, just come bring your shit. And if people are into it, they're into it. And I feel like at shows, that's what matters. I never go to shows and I'm like, I like it, but I don't know if they're true metal, or I like it, but I don't know if this is true punk rock. I'm just like, oh, this makes me feel good. I like it. I like the energy. I like the singer. I like this. So yeah, I think we just need to, we've slowly been getting a team around us and meeting other bands, and finding that niche of people that get it, and just like you said yourself, there, it sounds like you do, where you're like, oh, you can play with anybody. That's sort of the point, and I think we need to get there. But we've all along, since we've been a band, we've run into that where people are like, well, I like it, but I don't know if it's like just heavy metal. And then I'm like, well, who fucking cares? Think about how many bands we listen to that are your favorite bands that you were like, dude, I don't know what, like, I don't know what this is, or it's not true this, and I just like it, So we'll see with time, especially as we roll out this new music, which I think is I'm hoping, it hones in more on what Melted Bodies is. It's obviously a progression, and just like with any band, it's evolving. So I think as these EPs roll out and into the full length, it's going to give a much more succinct picture of who we are as a band, and get us out there, with the right people.
I think it will as well. And even taking a look at how different tours have happened, especially in 2022, we're starting to see a shift to some more of those packages where they're not straight on a specific genre. Like, you're seeing some of these different things happen there. I think it was in March and April, you had Kubla Khan and Knocked Loose on the same bill. Okay, yeah. That makes total sense. But in between there, because Knocked Loose was the headliner, in between Knocked Loose and Kubla Khan was the pop punk band Movements, which on paper, you look at it, it's like, this doesn't make a lick of sense. But going to the show, Kubla Khan, we were going nuts. Okay, now here comes Movements. Everyone was just vibing, having a good time, because the energy was still there. And we were all still amped up for Knocked Loose, but all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're still feeling that energy, we're still in the vibe, but we're just in more of a happier kind of mood. Take a look at what's going out with the Bring Me the Horizon tour. They're going out, it's Bring Me the Horizon, and Knocked Loose is supporting them, and Grandson. It's like, this is kind of all over the place, but it does work. And then I think one of the biggest things that's going to end up helping that out is the Bad Omens tour that's happening at the end of 2022, because you have Bad Omens, Dayseeker, and Make Them Suffer, and 1,000 Below. But you have Make Them Suffer, Australian, metalcore, heavy, hard. You got Bad Omens that have gone heavy, that have their own thing with Death of Peace of Mind. And then you have Dayseeker in between those two. And Dayseeker's just great music, but the vibe is definitely going to take a little bit of like more of a sad dip in a way, just because of the style. However, at the time we're recording this, that whole tour, there are only 2 shows right now on the whole tour that have not sold out yet. Only 2. And the reason those 2 haven't sold out is because One of them is the one in Milwaukee. It's because, oh, we were going to put you in this part of the venue. Wait, you sold all those tickets. You sold out there. And people want to still go. Let's move you to let's move you up to a bigger venue. Like, that's the reason why they haven't sold. They added dates and they've sold out that. So I'm not sure if that could also just speak to Bad Omens, but it could also speak to the fact that we can put together some of these interesting tour packages where the vibes are going to be a little bit different from certain bands, but it's still all going to work because people want to go out and see this. People want to go out and feel it. As long as the feeling of the show really flows together with all those different bands, it can absolutely work. Hear what you guys did on The Inevitable Fork, Part 1. I mean, just the different styles you guys are able to work with your music. That's what I'm saying. You can work with so many different things. You can work with heavier bands. You can work with bands that go on such a much faster pace. You can be that energetic piece for a tour package before it kind of like, okay, we're going to take a little bit of a dip before we go right back up. Like, there's so many places you guys can be put on some of these tour packages. It's all going to be about just, from the intangible, just get a good booking agent, good promoter, and honestly, just people will be like, we got to take a chance on something. Just take a chance on something. You've seen what happens with some of these tour packages where people are just going and putting all these random things together and they're absolutely working as long as the vibe still flows and everything. You guys can fit with so many different bands. Put them together. Let's see someone put you guys on a package and just watch everyone go nuts.
Yeah, just let us, it's like, I like the idea of like, and let us prove ourselves, like that's what any band does when you go out, especially when it's a eclectic package. It's like everybody's there to do their own thing and to do it as the best they can. And like I love our live shows and super high energy and we're all over the place. And I think people latch onto that. And because we're all we listen to so much different music, but at the core of it is we all grew up on very aggressive music that it really comes off, especially live. So yeah, I was like, what was the one when you were talking that I saw the other day? Oh, it's Turnstile, JPEG Mafia, and Snail Mail is the lineup, which is just, like, and JPEG Mafia shows are crazy, and Turnstile is pretty crazy now. They obviously like blew up. So it's a pretty different crowd now, but yeah, I like exactly what you're saying, where it's, I think people just aren't, especially with streaming and, with how much great music is out there and with how much genre blending there is outside of, just metal and other genres happening, that it just, I feel like that, I don't know, there's that old school way of booking, an old school way of what fits with what is quickly dying, which excites me, because fans want to be challenged at the end of the day. Fans want to hear different stuff. We all like different kinds of music. There's just so much good stuff out there and we have so much access to it now that it makes sense within reason. Yeah, I just think it's we're counting on that. Obviously, with the style of music that we do, we're counting on that because that's just how we are as musicians. Yeah. That'll be in us no matter what.
Yeah, and within reason too, because looking at the streaming as well, there's so much music out there. So many people are doing so many creative things. But when you take a look at the bands that are, especially the most popular ones right now that are really blowing up in rock and metal, they're the ones that are trying out these different things that when you ask, okay, what genre do they fit in? It's really hard just not to say, it's hard to just say, not to say a genre. It's really not hard to say what genre is Bring Me the Horizon. Fuck, I don't know. It's Bring Me the Horizon. They could go super duper heavy deathcore like they did in their first album, or they could go what they did on Ammo and just anywhere in between there. Just they do what they want to do. Bad Omens now. What genre is Bad Omens? Hell if I know. What genre is Falling in Reverse? Hell if I know. But seeing how big some of these bands are getting off of stuff, just being as creative as possible, trying so many new things, and absolutely hitting on them. These tour packs where you have to be so rigid with so many different things, it's just not going to really work anymore because so many people are going to be accustomed to so many different things, so many different instances. You're going to have to build tour packages not off of what band fits with what stylistically, but what band fits with what artist or what other band on an energy level. Because you're going to want to create the best live show possible, which now I'm thinking for you guys, why can't we get you on a tour package with the guys in A Void and Silent Planet? Because your energy plus their energy, oh dear God, that's like mainlining Red Bull.
Yes, and the metal. I've talked about this a lot, I think, with like the band and stuff, but it's just so funny that metal in certain regards is like such a conservative genre in so many people's minds, when the genre was built off of pushing things to be as uncomfortable and, to be as, against what was going on. And then it's like, still we run into, people that have either work in the industry or fans, that I'm like, I want to grab them and be like, dude, do you listen? Are you hearing yourself? Like, what? Like, who fucking cares if you can't categorize it or this? Like, if it makes you feel uncomfortable or it makes you feel happy or if it makes you feel aggressive, then we're doing our job, like, and just like what you said, like, Bring Me the Horizon. Like, I remember as, like hardcore heavy. And then I remember hearing a song, I never really kept up with them, and then being like, what's this? And then Bring Me the Horizon, I'm like, oh, this is like a pop radio song. And they're like, yeah, but they evolved, and respect to them, because, it's like, oh, wait, we can actually like do more classic songwriting and bring in melodies and, build out our fan base and do it the way that we want. And we're gonna alienate those people that are like, dude, you can't do pop choruses like this when you used to play this, and then it's like, well, then you're not the listener that we really sought for, like you gotta mature and you gotta evolve and you gotta try new stuff. Like, it's such a conservative, boring genre at times, and I just can't do it. I love 90s death metal, as I said, Cannibal Corpse, and I'll listen to that, for hours on end, but it gets to a point where I'm like, dude, I can't. There's so many bands that are doing this to a T, which I love, but then after a while, I'm just like, fuck, I just want one of them to just jump into something else. Just give me something, like, like jump into something unexpected.
Yeah, and for myself, once I got into metalcore, I was thinking, look, I got to jump in, and all of a sudden seeing all these different bands doing some of these different things I never thought was possible. Like, first I'm actually seeing a picture of Motionless in White. I thought, is this like some like weird Marilyn Manson type thing? Then I listened to Eternally Yours, and I was just like, this might be one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my entire life.
Just trying new stuff. Exactly what you said. Like,
and
let's bring in electronics. Let's bring in a house beat. Let's then let's bring in a jazz thing.
Let's make all our songs based off of horror movies. Boom, Ice Nine Kills blows up off of that. It's just that's fucking unique as shit. Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah, you listen to an album, it's just, this is completely different than anything else I've heard from you guys. And there's some stuff from Bring Me the Horizon I don't like. I didn't care for Ammo. Also, they released post-human survival horror, and they tie a lot of that stuff all together with everything. And I just sat there and thought, this might be one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my entire life. It's just, bands evolve. Bands are going to try new things. And if we try and constrict the genres down to something where it's, all right, we have to categorize everything in this little box, because it's simple, it's easy if we're able to do that. If we do that, we're limiting the potential for rock and metal. And that's why, take a look back at, the year 2000, rock and metal were still pretty tippy top in terms of the popularity style and the pop culture. But in the past, 22 years, you take a look at that, all of a sudden that's gone down, and pop music is always looking to be there. But then hip hop and rap really rose up in pop culture. Pop country really rose up there. And it seems like in the pop culture sense, we're kind of falling behind there. And I think it's just because it's, again, like you said, conservative. We're trying to keep everything in these little boxes so that it's easy to categorize them. And if we don't fit in there, oh, you don't fit in there? Grr, I don't like it. No, don't fucking do that. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you can always go to the band's other stuff that you like, or why not venture out and find something you do like?
Or just have an opinion. I don't care if you, I've always said that, like, if, have an opinion. You can hate it, you can not like it, but just to say, like, I don't know how I feel, I'm like, come on, man, make up your mind. It doesn't have to be something you can digest immediately within a song. That's a problem. If you're like, oh, I want to be able to know what they sound like in one song, I'm just like, okay, well, you're not listening to music then.
No, because even when I was listening to your guys' stuff, when I was listening to Inevitable Fork Part 1, I'm just listening to the titular song, going through it, and I'm just at first trying to figure out, get a handle on what you guys are as a band. And after that one, of course, got to go to the next one, see what happens. Go to Think Safe. I'm thinking, this is a little different. Once I started listening to Liars, though, that's when I sat on the fact, I'm like, okay, Melted Bodies, I can say they're metal, but when someone says, what else are they? I can just say anything you want. There is so much going on here. I don't know what to say outside of just listen to it and enjoy the energy.
Oh man, yeah, we'll see, man. I'm excited about it. It's it's those four, and we already released Therapy, the last one on there, probably because that's the closest. Therapy is the oldest song. It's probably the closest to what we were doing on Enjoy Yourself. Super energetic, but has that sort of satirical edge to it, that like sort of funness, and then in my ears, the inevitable fourth the song. That opening song is just an angry song. I mean, that lyrically, and it's everything about that song is it's just an angry song. And then Think Safe is more fun, but it's again less satirical. And Liars is, I think, the way we mixed it, because that song in my mind is a metal song, but the way we mixed it, and then I wanted to do a drum and bass rhythm underneath it without just doing like, oh, here's a jungle sample or something, so that's what gives it that dance. And I think having the guitars at the same level as the synths, doing that triplet line, I went back and forth on that a lot, where I was like, oh, should we put the guitars more dominant? Because that line, if you have that line quadrupled with heavy distorted guitars and no synths, it's a very straightforward sort of new metal line. But if you put those synths equal with it, and then you take that kick and you take it off from just being on the 1-3, and you give it that drum and bass rhythm, that's where it takes it to where you're like, oh, I don't know anymore. Like it's sort of dancing now, and like the synths, I don't know, but that's sort of what we do though, so I was like, okay, we're gonna go with that, we're gonna go with that in it. And but then I think live too, you get more of the mix I'm talking about, and that's its own energy, so I think it's cool. But yeah, thanks for listening through them, man. Like I put so much work into these songs, so it's just, I really appreciate when people take time, because it is a lot of stuff going on, and if you're not in the right mood, it's a lot to digest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for myself, because when I was going through this, I'm not gonna lie, I was not in the best mood. Just listen to this stuff, trying to go through my full-time job, hoping that this stuff was gonna bring up my energy. Liars, that was the one right from the get-go. Just how you match those synths and those guitars, keep them like not having one be more dominant than the other, keeping them pretty well evenly matched. The pace they were going off of, and just the way that synth sounded. I'm thinking, are we going with some like futuristic, like J-pop inspired synth on here? But when I listened to it, when I heard it, my first thought was, this is giving me a lot of that energy, a lot of that same feel that a intro like Kingslayer by Bring Me the Horizon, or a song like Beautiful by Wind Waker had done, using a similar kind of style synth. But no one really tries to do that. Those are the only two bands I've ever heard really try to do something like that in more that metal sense. But the way it was done, it's just, right from the get-go, I just want to move. I just want to throw something around. I want to throw someone. I want to throw a shoulder to somebody. I'm just so hyped up and energetic at that point. I'm so ready for this whole entire song. And then as it just keeps going on, I mean, that energy just really doesn't waver. It just keeps going. It's just so much fun to listen to, but it goes also heavy at the exact same point where I'm like, I'm having fun. This is awesome.
Oh, that makes me happy to hear, man. And wait, did you say J-pop or K-pop?
J-pop.
So not too far off. Like I was watching do you know Dorohedoro, the anime?
No, I don't.
There's an anime on Netflix which is amazing, called Dorohedoro. And even if you're not into that world, I think you'll enjoy it. But I was watching a lot of that at the time, and I just was like, oh, a lot of these like intro songs, and where it's like the really sort of triggered drums, super, there's not a lot of warmth to anything, synths. Sometimes the guitars, I'm like, oh, that's not even a real guitar, but there's an energy to it. And so especially for the intro of Liars, the synth tone that's what I used inspiration from, is that I was like, oh, there's like these anime intros and, this sort of style that's, those synths by themselves are pretty cheeky. But like you said, I was like, yeah, but I want to use it. That's sort of the point. I want it to be stabby. I don't want to have a lot of warmth on it. We can have the drums, sort of fill in that and give it that energy of what you said. I think that there's few bands that sort of take things that extreme and it works. And I feel like the first band that just came to my mind is Death Grips, because I remember hearing them, for the first time years ago, and I was like, dude, I just love how they're using some of these tones that you would never associate with aggressive music. And there's an energy to it, and you either love it or hate it. I know that song, and there's the parts that, it sounds like you latched onto that a lot of people are going to be like, I don't fucking get it, or I just want the guitars really high, or those synths are cheesy. Or there's going to be people that, like yourself, that are like, dude, the energy's there. I like that they went for it. And fuck yeah, somebody that's doing this where it isn't, purely, 4 full stack guitars that are stacked on top of each other, and, trying to be as heavy as you can. Cause I don't know. I think I love heavy music. I love real heavy stuff, but that I don't think that that's going to be our strength, in the long, like I can write the heaviest stuff, but there's just so many bands that are doing, the tones and everything, and the breakdowns and the distortions. It's just like, how insanely compressed and, layered can we get? How many guitars can we put on top of each other? And so I think with that song, especially, we started to do, a 4th and 5th tracking of guitars. And then we decided not to, because I was like, oh, let's just let's leave some room. So, there's still some of that punk energy. I know it's not a punk song, but, still some of that punk energy where like the triplets are a little loose at parts, they're not, the tone isn't super chuggy. So yeah, I think about that song a lot, and that one's going to be the next single. So we'll see.
I mean, I hope people really take to it just based on the fact that it's so energetic. It's catchy in a way too, just to bring you right into it. But it's how that synth really works with that drum, because using that anime kind of style, and you hear those different synths and hear that different energy that's coming from those intros. Because I don't really watch anime, but I've seen some of them. I've heard some of those songs. There's a lot of energy behind them, but it's always if it's just that synth isolated, it's going in a certain direction, and it feels like it's going in a certain direction with the energy that really isn't fully as conducive to like a more rock and metal kind of style. However, by putting the drums behind it, the drums are kind of like the guiding force to that sound, to that energy, to put it more towards that rock and metal style. But when we feel it, and all of a sudden you get the guitars in there as well, just to kind of, work and level out with it, you can't help but just not want to move to this thing and go nuts. And of course, there are going to be people that are like, oh, you should have just played guitar. No backing tracks like that. Grrr. No, seriously, like, this is such a cool song to listen to. Just throw down to, have so much fun. And man, I can't help just like smile when I'm thinking about the song, because I keep thinking about the intro. Hell, even before we jumped on the call, that was what I was listening to for probably like the last 15 minutes, was just listening to Liars over and over again, because I couldn't get enough of it. I need a little bit of energy coming into this podcast. Boom, listen to Liars. All of a sudden you jump on the call. Now I'm flying.
Yeah, I like that song, and I'm glad you said catchy, because I love when something gets stuck in your head. I try, that is something that I work on when writing the songs, is, like I also write a lot of stuff outside of this, that's more singer-songwriter, and I don't know, like I feel like those are the songs that stick with you, especially if we're trying a bunch of different kinds of stuff and, melding these different genres and unexpected stuff. I think you have to have stuff that tomorrow that you're like, oh, like, to sing along with the verse, or, that's a lie. And, so it's, yeah, I think it'll be good. I think that'll be a good one for us. I hope so.
Like, this is gonna be the song that, I mean, I'll be driving in my car and driving down I-94 going towards Chicago, getting ready to see Bring Me the Horizon. It'll be after work. I'll just be like, I need some energy already. Let's open up my phone. Let's go to that Stream of Liars and just.
Well, and that song is simple as far as subject matter, but also, very dark. It is about how most of us, I don't want to generalize, but I know for myself, and I think a lot of us, especially now, with the state of the planet and COVID and the world, and how fucking expensive everything is, and it's like every day there's new horrible news coming out, and we still have to keep pushing forward. And how many times are you having a shit day and somebody's like, how are you, man? And then you're like, I'm okay, I'm good. And in your mind you're like, that was a total fucking lie, because I know they're probably having a hard day, and I don't want to open up and bring them down, or I don't want to talk about it. But then we all, we wait in line. I think that's the line from the song, is we instead wait in line to self-implode, and I've learned that the hard way, where it's like you tell everybody that you're okay for so long, and you just keep pushing it down and pushing it down. And it's like, I imagine this line that just goes on forever of all of us that just sort of stand in line to wait and self-implode, because it's like we lie about it so much, and it just gets to a point where we let it out. And whether that's, when you get in a fight, or whether that's, when you end up punching the wall, or whether that's just when you end up drinking too much, or, doing drugs, or, something worse, instead of just being able, I wish that we could just fucking be honest with each other. But, it's like, I wish I could come into work and somebody's like, how are you, man? And I'm like, to be honest, I just feel like shit. I'm feeling down today. But it's still at that point, especially in America, where, like, oh, it'll be okay, man. Just like stay positive and keep your head up. And it's like, dude, that's just not reality. Like we feel down sometimes, and so, yeah, that's Liars, where it's sort of that, existential crisis or internal battle that we all have, that isn't, it's not something where it's nothing special. It's, we all work really hard, or we have families, or we're going through something tough, with our partner, or maybe you just have a roommate that's being a dick. But, I wish that we could just all be more open about it, instead of so afraid of confrontation, or so afraid of bringing people down if you're at a party, and people are like, oh, how are you? And you're like, dude, I'm just, I think people are becoming more and more open about that. A lot of my stuff is about that. Therapy is obviously about therapy, but I'm just so sick of fucking lying all the time when you're feeling off or feeling angry. So sorry, I went on a rant there, but it's obviously something that I think about a lot and put a lot of passion into. So
did you have like a secret camera watching me when you wrote that song? Because you're literally starting to talk like it's like you're watching my life, basically. Because I get the same exact thing. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing all right. And I'm really overwhelmed with certain things right now. I'm struggling with certain things. How you doing? Oh, just living the dream. At times it's just, no, I have to be. I'm stuck in a certain spot I don't really want to be. But all of a sudden I like do one of these podcasts, and all of a sudden, okay, how you feeling? Right now I feel fucking fantastic. Do you feel fantastic? Absolutely I do. Just because like the energy is just so much driven off from here. I absolutely love it. But I do understand what you're saying. It's such a weird thing when you're not doing very well, and all of a sudden if you bring up like, man, I'm just not doing very well, I'm having a shit day, and just, oh, it'll be okay, just keep your chin up, and then people just leave. Yeah. It's like, well,
they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to admit, most of the time, that's not every time, but most of the time, I feel like when people walk away, it's because deep down they're having struggles with something and they don't want to confront it. And you being open about your struggles makes them real. It's like this is turning into a therapy session, but you know what I mean? Like, but it sucks, and then, but then you meet those friends, or you run into people that are like, oh man, tell me about it. and then they're like, dude, I had that like a week ago. And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, man, I feel so much fucking better even after that 5 minutes, but most of the time, yeah, you wait in line. You say you're okay, and that's a lie, and you wait in line to self-implode. So, yeah.
Yeah, or if you're me and you're trying to find a way not to self-implode, perfect place to go to kind of get some of that frustration out in the most fun way possible. If you know what you're doing, mosh pit.
Yes, I was gonna say full circle, man. Full circle to what we were talking about. 100%.
Full circle all the way back around to the beginning. So that's perfect.
That's nice. That's nice.
Perfect way to close out. So, Andy, as we bring this podcast to conclusion, one thing I'd like to do is give you a chance, say whatever you want to say, plug whatever you want to plug, promote whatever you want to promote at the end of the podcast. So, my friend, the floor is yours.
Well, let's see. As we talked about, we have the EP coming out in November. A new single coming out in the next couple of weeks, and then more music coming up early next year. And what else can I plug, man? Hopefully we're going to be getting on tour soon. Like it's nothing written in stone yet, but man, I'd love to get out there and see that Brewer's hat going counterclockwise. So.
Oh, for you guys, you're definitely going to see that Brewer's hat in the pit, and you're going to see it going counterclockwise. If the pit's going counterclockwise, I'm going clockwise. If the pit's going clockwise, I'm going counterclockwise. I'm having a freaking blast doing it every step of the way. Just make sure you play liars, though, so I can just lose my mind over the craziness and the energy. Perfect. So now it's time for me to close this podcast with 3 very specific things. First things first, yes, the Inedible Fork Part 1 is coming out in late November. I believe it's on the 25th. So best way to make sure you find out about it and keep in touch with it, along with anything else that happens with the band, whether it's shows, more new music, or just some good old-fashioned content, best way to do it is to go to the script for the podcast. It's going to say Find Melted Bodies Online. There'll be links and labels for everything in terms of where to connect with them on social media, where to stream their music, where to support them, where to get some merch from Melted Bodies, because why wouldn't you want to help support these guys, get some merch so they can go out on tour and you can see them perform live. And then when they perform live, where you can find them. So go stream for the podcast. All the labels will be there. All the links will be there. I'm doing all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is click, like, click, share, click, subscribe, click, stream, all that stuff. I'm doing all the work. You got to do 2 clicks. That's it. Now it's time for number 2. So, Andy, whenever I bring guests on the podcast, I tend to do a certain promise at the end of this as a way to say both thank you for taking your time for being on the podcast, along with I would like to continue to support the band any way I can. And this promise has been hit pretty much every single time that I have been on a podcast. And you, sir, have not broken that streak. So my promise starts with when. I say when because I don't like to say if. If implies possibly not happening. When implies it's going to happen, but date and time to be determined. When I get to you guys perform live for the first time, Melted Bodies, my promise to you is this, sir. First round's on me.
Yes. Done. Done.
Sign it, seal it, deliver it. It's set and ready to go. And as we bring this podcast to conclusion, Andy, I can't say goodbye because I made you a promise. I want to see you perform live. I want to have you see that Brewer's hat go against the current of the pit, just going nuts to some of your songs. On top of that, dude, I know you got more new music coming out. Why don't we do this again?
I would absolutely love to. And thank you for paying attention. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for making great music. I really appreciate it. That's a better way. That's why I gotta end it. It's like I gotta want to say you're welcome. I gotta say thank you because this was a lot of fun to listen to. So can we say goodbye? No, we can't. I'm gonna end it by saying this. I'll see you later.
I'll see you.
Well, folks, that's my interview with Andy from the band Melted Bodies. Once again, the first EP of the 3 that'll make up the Inevitable Fork comes out November 25th. It is your first Christmas gift, everybody. That Black Friday Christmas gift. Ooh, yeah. It's Metal with Melted Bodies. So go make sure you pre-save that bad boy. Go make sure you follow along with the band, all their socials, so you know when the next batch of new songs come out on the next EP. When they're going to be touring. And when you can go see them live. Because if you're going to be in the Midwest, if you're going to be around the Milwaukee area, come and see them with me. Let's mosh. Let's have a great time. So go script to the podcast under Find Melted Bodies Online. All their links will be down there with labels as well. So you can click, follow, click, subscribe, click, share, click, stream, click all that stuff right there. Also, the same for the Chord Progression Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for your viewing pleasure. You can also watch the podcast, so please subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also subscribe to the podcast, 5L Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and many other places as well. Thanks to Britain Media for making sure that the audio stream side of things for 2022 went way up in terms of overall streams. Hell yeah! So, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, can you please do that? If you're like, yeah, sure, thank you. If you're like, nah, I don't want to, please reconsider. Please. For me. But if not, I totally understand that you're stopping by anyway. If you are subscribed to the podcast, I want to give you a huge thank you because this thing gives me energy, man. I love it. Also want to thank Manscaped once again, 20% off and free shipping code CPP at checkoutmanscaped.com. Thank you, Andy. Man, I want to have you back in the podcast, man. Let's do this once again. I mean, Inevitable Fork, this is part 1. What happens when part 2 comes out? Should we do it again? What about part 3? Oh, why am I shaking my head like that? We got to go up and down like, oh, yeah, we're doing that. I hope so. Or we're going to make it happen. Should we? Oh, yeah. So on that note, that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. With a big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah.